For there is nothing hid except to be revealed, nor is anything kept secret except in order that it may be made known. If any man has ears to hear, let him be listening, and let him perceive and comprehend. Voyagers, Secrets of Amenti is a remarkable achievement. The magnitude of the implications fostered by its very existence is, in a word, stupendous. In the inspired writings of India, Voyagers would be regarded as Shruti, which functions as its own authority since it is the product of immediate insight into the nature of ultimate reality. Ashayana's experience with the Guardian Alliance represents, in my opinion, a true Gnosis, a direct experience with higher intelligence, the direct experience of knowledge with no loss of resolution. Ashayana, by her own admission, functions here solely as scribe. Voyagers is the product of nearly 30 years of direct, physical, consensual, and most importantly, ongoing contact with pro-human higher intelligence, be they extra, meta, or ultra-terrestrial, hence a gnosis in the truest sense. This gnosis is passed on to the reader, engaging a higher level of cognition or precognition if one is already one step ahead of the game. Voyagers is a precious jewel in Indra's web, spoken of in the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra, itself a testament in previous times to a profound knowledge and understanding of advanced Keylontic Morphogenetic Science. In the following pages, you will be reawakened to a model of interdimensional physics, time mechanics, DNA construction, and multi-dimensional identity structure that will revolutionize your comprehension of our world, our universe, and yourselves. These teachings are being returned to us at a most critical juncture in our tenure as embodied souls, in order that you may, as free and proud shaper of your own being, fashion yourself in the form you may prefer. These teachings are submitted, as Rod Serling, the Twilight Zone, would say, not for your approval, but rather for your consideration. Do consider them carefully, for if most of us remain ignorant of ourselves, it is because self-knowledge is painful, and we prefer the pleasures of illusion. And so aptly put, in the adornment of the spiritual marriage, knowledge of ourselves teaches us whence we come, where we are, and whither we are going. We come from God, and we are in exile. You, the reader, are about to cross the event horizon of a groundbreaking work of singular significance for Earth and its inhabitants. Voyagers is, quite literally, a roadmap to the stars and beyond. Inside these pages is truth, not revealed, but unveiled, stripped of the distortion, dogma, and elitism still so pervasive within traditional and contemporary works of higher calling. Voyagers establishes a cosmographic paradigm through which all others can be organized and unified, providing a most compelling and impressive body of information regarding the true origins of the human lineage, as well as our hidden, until now, evolutionary destiny. We stand on the threshold of the fulfillment of a covenant made a long time ago in a special pre-existent place, a place known to the Akoma as Ha-Ku, to the Mayan as Hunab Ku, the Egyptian Ku, to the Lakotas Peschla, to the Dorothy in each of us, the Emerald City of Oz, the heavenly Tula Tara Home, prepare for a new level of revelation. Houston, we have liftoff. So we have a little bit of a recommendation of required reading. This Voyagers series has been vastly enlarged so as to include much important current information about what is happening on planet Earth, and including the tragic national events of September 11th, 2001, when hijacked airliners were intentionally crashed the World Trade Center in Bangkok. To ensure that you have an appropriate understanding of this information, it will be necessary for you to obtain and read, if you have not done so, the second edition of Voyagers Volume 1. Well, looks like that's another document I might have to ferret out, obtain. Let's just read a little bit from this document, though, as compelling information I'm already looking at right here. This is just fascinating. The Azurite Temple of Melchizedek Cloister. This is, and a lot of this information, if you're taking notes, is very similar to what was in the Decoding the Hive Mind document, even Pyramids in Montauk, talking about the morphogenetic grid, as well as this A New Order of the Ages document, been reading from. All this stuff ties in together. It's fascinating. 12 Signet Council, Stargate Security and Royal House Deception. Let's see what we can get into here. Chapter 1, The Secrets of Amenti. Amenti Transmission, 1998. Throughout Voyagers, The Sleeping Abductees. I believe that's the document prior to this document. Various speakers of the Guardian Alliance have provided you with information pertinent to your times and to the success of your species' evolution. We have provided glimpses of your future, your distant past, and what is taking place behind the scenes of your multidimensional present. All of this data is relevant to various peoples of your times, but there is information not yet addressed that is perhaps the most significant of all. For it will provide you with the missing links of knowledge through which your past, present, and future can be united. We of the Guardian Alliance have an announcement to make. It is a message your species has waited over 800,000 years to hear. Our announcement will be made in later chapters of the book, for without the information contained here within, this announcement would have little meaning for you, the esteemed viewer. In order for you to understand, you, the esteemed viewer, the importance of this message, we must first provide you with a sequential summary of the true history of your evolutionary journey. Within these missing passages of time lives the purpose and process of your evolution as a people. In previous chapters, we have explored the beginnings of your species lineage, beginning with the inception of your race as the Tyrannosaurians upon planet Terra in the second harmonic universe, 560 million years ago. This is where your Earth drama began, and the place to which you will eventually be led through the course of your evolutionary progression. To explore your entire history from 560 million years ago to the present would require many books. Here, we will simply provide you with the data most important to your understanding of the purposes for your present evolution. Origins and the Fall. Origins, the first world, Terra. A long, long time ago, 560 million years ago, upon the planet Terra within the second harmonic universe. Your Earth is presently in the first harmonic universe. Many ET and meta-terrestrial races combine their genetic and energetic makeup to create a master race of beings that would serve as guardians of the planet Terra. The Syrian Council from Harmonic Universe 2, along with several other groups, were appointed as directors and overseers of the project. The Tyrannosaurian Experiment, T1, as we call it. Meta-terrestrials from the fourth and fifth harmonic universes were the founders of this project, working through a seed race called the Lyrans from the third harmonic universe. The Lyrians created a race of beings in Harmonic Universe 3 called the Elohim, who would become overseers for the Syrian races in Harmonic Universe 2. The Elohim became one of the numerous supervisory groups within the Tyrannium 1 experiment, due to the Syrian race contribution of genetic identity to the experiment. The Tyrannium race evolved for about 8 million years on Terra, with 12 primary subracial divisions among them. Each of the 12 Tyrannium subraces carried a genetic slant derived from the 12 primary contributors to the T1 experiment, but all of them carried the unique 12-strand DNA package the T1s were designed to embody. The 12 Tyrannium subraces were the Brahman, the Brahman, Atuni, Trien Inten, Azurtan, Keltos, Arame, Utarans, Luri, Siraz, Nezaktai, and the Melchizedek. After evolving successfully for many years, the Tyrannium race began to digress, their genetic code breaking down and their cultures falling into disharmony. Manipulation by and interbreeding with various unrelated ET strains was the primary cause of this digression. About 8 million years into their evolution, the Tyrannium race divided into two primary racial strains, the Alananians, sometimes referred to as the Belekudium, and the Lumians, frequently called the Adamai Kadmon. The two strains of Tyrannium evolved together on one large landmass called Eden, creating two cultures known as Alania and Lumia. I would imagine that's synonymous with Atlantis and Lemuria. That's just my 2 cents. Both cultures evolved on Terra for about 1 million years. Both races carried the original 12-strand DNA genetic code of their Tyrannium lineage, and both carried mutations and digressions of that code from interstellar breeding. Cultural disturbances escalated along with the continued digression of the Alanian and the Lumian strains, and hostility arose as the Alanians sought dominion over the more passive Lumian culture. Mu, the Lumians, Ceres, and the priesthood of Mu, keeping a close eye on their Alanian antagonists. A long time ago, certain members of the Lumian race foresaw a cataclysm in their future, brought on by the increasingly dangerous Alanian experimentation with power generation through Terra's planetary core. The Lumians petitioned assistance from the Harmonic Universe, Syrian Council, and the HU3 Elohim. Under direction of the Syrian Council, the Lumians set up amongst their members an organization called the Council of Mu. Through the Council of Mu, the Lumians moved large numbers of their race across the oceans to a small continent on Terra that was primarily uninhabited by organized culture. They named this continent Mu, and for 50,000 years, the Lumians of Mu worked with the Syrian Council to redirect the genetic digression of their race. During this period, the Elohim of Hu-3 interbred with the Lumians, who carried the Siraz Tyrannium subrace strain in their gene codes, creating a race called the Ceres, which purified the genetic strain of the Lumians of Terra. Descendants of the Ceres later became known as the Ceres, who interacted with the Hu-1 Earth humans at various periods. The Lumians and Ceres coexisted peacefully on Mu, attending to the intergalactic and spiritual business of the Council of Mu. The Ceres created the priesthood of Mu, an egalitarian spiritual collective with a strong matriarchal slant whose practices centered around the teachings of the sacred law of one, or unity consciousness. The Mu priesthood exists to this day and is a primary motivating force within certain Terran communities. The community of Mu continued in evolution through the realigned 12-strand DNA gene code until about 550 million years ago. Alania, Templar solar initiates, and the Syrian rebellion. Throughout the evolution of Mu, digression continued with the Alanian race, and anti-Lumian sentiment ran high within the power-hungry Alanian elite. The Alanians employed subterranean grid technologies in hopes of bringing the now bountiful continent of Mu under the Alanian domain. The Lumians and Ceres foresaw the cataclysm of Terra that would result from these technologies about 900 years prior to the events. The Ceres tried to warn the Alanians to no avail. Petitions to the Syrian Council to redirect the Alanians had failed, giving rise to the Alanian Rebellion and Lumian-Syrian resistance. The Alanians were controlled by an elite group called the Templar Solar Initiates, who had been entrusted with rulership and guardianship over the Alanian continent by the Syrian Council. The Templar Solar Initiates became sympathetic with the Syrian root race Anunnaki, in their Syrian rebellion against the Syrian Council and refused to follow dictates of the Syrian Council and advisory Elohim, who based their decisions on the teachings of the sacred law of one. Through the Templar Solar Initiates, the power struggle between Syrian Anunnaki and Elohim Syrian's Council loyal Syrian Blues, another Syrian root race, was brought to Terra. This period in Alanian history is known as the Syrian Rebellion. And through this power struggle, planet Terra was almost destroyed. The Ur-Tarantirats, Mu, and the priesthood of Ur. Certain groups of Alanians became aware that the Templar Solar Initiates were misusing power in a way that would result in the implosion of Terra's planetary grid. This group of Alanians approached the Lumians and Ceres of Mu, asking for assistance, and many of them defected to the territories of Mu. The Ceres interbred with these Alanians, primarily those carrying the Utarian Turanancium subrace genetic line, realigning their digressing genetic code, and these Alanians further interbred with the Lumians. The original Turanancium 12-strand DNA gene code was rebuilt and purified through this Ceres-Lumian Alanian blend. This revitalized Turanancium race became known as the Ur-Taranats. The Ur-Taranatis created the temple and priesthood of Ur upon the continent of Mu. The priesthood of Ur shared those practices of the priests of Mu, but developed interest in more scientific applications of spiritual law, such as portal mechanics. Like the priesthood of Mu, the priests of Ur exist on Terra to this day, and they serve as guardians and gatekeepers of the time portal structures that link Earth to present-day Terra. During the Syrian rebellion on Terra, the priesthood of Ur stood against the Templar Solar Initiates of Alania, eventually retreating underground with the people of Mu, unable to stop the Templars from misusing the power of the planetary core. Small wars within the local galactic sectors were fought during these times, which became known as the Terran Wars. Under direction of the Syrian Council and Elohim, the priests of Ur began to prepare for the pending grid implosion. Many people were evacuated to other sympathetic star systems where they evolved, safely intermingling with other races. Stay tuned, folks. Intermission time. You don't want to miss this intergalactic war. Namaste. Namaskaram.